Hey everybody, welcome back to my Celica 1U Z-Swap. Today I'll be taking the engine here off the hoist, get it on a stand, and start taking it apart and cleaning it up some more. That way we can get it prepared for rebuild, new gaskets, seals, a couple other little bits, some cosmetics, and generally getting it ready to throw it in the Celica. So let's get started. Alright, well, first snag getting the engine connected to the hoist. I got the bell housing bolt here, the standard bell housing bolt, and as I put it through the little arm here, the end of the bolt does not go through here, so I have to go to the hardware store and grab longer versions of these metric bolts, because otherwise I can't get them to screw into the back of the engine here. There's the pick and pull tramp stamp that goes on the back of the engine when you get a junkyard engine. Pretty funny.
Almost an inch longer.
So I think, yeah, it looks like we might need just about an inch longer or so on these bolts. So probably grab one, go to the hardware store, figure out what the thread is, and get some big ones. Okay, good. Bolts are here. They fit, they work. Now let's get it connected to the stand. All right, the engine's on the stand. Definitely had to mop the floor a couple times because I turned the engine over and fluids and coolant and things that were still left in the engine spilled right out, so expect this to get a little messy, but that's done. Engine on the stand. As much as I want to start tearing into the valve cover and intake manifold and stuff, since I am renting the cherry picker, we have a different job to do, which is get the old engine out. So that's actually job one before I can actually tear into this guy, as excited as I am. So this guy got to be prepped. Right now I'm just cleaning up the interior so I don't have to worry about stuff being loose. And then car's gonna get jacked up, gonna drain the oil, coolant, transmission fluid, all that good stuff. So before we even begin thinking about removing the engine, there's actually a couple things we need to do. First off, to take your car for a drive, you need to empty that gas tank. Then, fill up the tank with 91 octane. The 1UZ will not like anything lower than that. Of course, 93 octane is perfectly fine too. In my case, I got the tank down to about 2.5 gallons left of fuel, whereas I filled up with 13.5 gallons of 91. So there is still a little bit of 87 octane in the tank, but I believe that should be okay. If you're still feeling a bit wary about the octane level in the tank, then you can totally throw a bottle of octane booster in there. There's one thing I need to do in order to make sure, before I dump the oil and coolant and actually transmission fluid, because I'm actually going to pull the whole thing out, the one thing I need to do is actually depressurize the fuel system so I can take that all out. So what I'm going to do here is remove the EFI relay, and that on the fuse box is that. So this will actually disable the fuel injectors and prevent pressure buildup from the fuel pump as well. So we're going to take that out and crank the engine over a couple times so that there's no residual fuel left in the fuel line. So when we go to disconnect it, it doesn't shoot out high pressure fuel everywhere. That way, if we do open it up, it'll only drip down. You can catch it in a bucket without it spraying everywhere. Okay, so let's go inside the car and crank it a few times. Now what's nice with Celicas is that they don't have a neutral safety on the clutch, so I'm not going to bother with pressing on the clutch. Just going to make sure I'm not in gear, handbrake up, and crank. Okay, so that should be enough to depressurize the fuel system, and now we can start tearing things up. Okay, update time. Well, I've removed quite a bit from the engine. It's getting there in terms of being ready to pull out. I still need to disconnect the exhaust. Some heater hoses over here have to be removed. I have to disconnect the engine mounts, of course. I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do about the wiring harness, because I guess I'll have to pull it through the firewall back here. That's it. That's the ECU wiring that goes to the engine. That's literally it. So that's really cool. Back here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the engine from the transmission, and then I may have to do all the bell housing bolts for that, and then I guess I'll support the transmission with a jack. Otherwise, we're making progress. Might be able to get it done tonight. It's getting pretty late, so I would at least like to get this done before the night is over, and at least have the engine out so I can then roll the car back in. Okay, change of plan. This is taking quite a long time to get everything sorted out. Disconnected all the AC lines and got them out of the way. The fuel line I still need to disconnect. I cracked it and let it drip a little bit, but I still need to figure out a way to open it and then seal it back up without it dripping after I take out the fuel filter. Otherwise, this is pretty much almost ready to come out. The top two bell housing bolts in back are out, and I've loosened the other bell housing bolts around the perimeter of the transmission, and the motor mount bolts on both sides are also loose. But it is getting pretty late, so I think it's time to change tactics here and put the car back down and try to roll it back in the garage. So I think that would be the best course of action, and then I'll continue tomorrow morning. Okay, it's another day. Slept in quite a bit since I was up late last night trying to finalize getting the engine out, but didn't really get a chance to do that as it was getting quite late. So instead, as I came back to the garage, I just kind of cleaned up in and around the car, put some of the used engine components and actually some interior components, as you'll see in just a sec, in the trunk to kind of clear some space. I put all the 22 RE components in a box here, so that can be transported easily for the new owner. And now just move the engine off to the side over here. And I've already gone ahead and removed some stuff in the interior. Make sure you bag and label everything you take off. That'll come really handy, especially when you come back to this after 2-4 weeks or maybe even longer. So I've already removed the glove box and also the steering pedal cover area under here, just in case I need to access wires here. But we're definitely going to be more important over here, whereas I've already removed the 2 yellow plugs over there for the ECU wiring, so I can pull those through and through the firewall. And now that that's ready to go, I should be able to get that out today. I also removed the shifter just in case the transmission has to come out too, although I'm going to try to see if I can get the engine out without doing that. Okay, so ECU wiring's all pulled out from the firewall, engine mounts disconnected some more, all the transmission bell housing bolts are gone. I think this is pretty much ready to come out now, so I think I'll try doing that. And like I said, I'm going to try to get it out without the transmission, just engine by itself. Think that'll make things a little bit easier, just as far as vertical space here in the garage. We can't go up too high. I'll also have to remove the hood, of course. So with that, let these be the last few steps before we do the final 22 RE delete. Very popular modification. All right, that's the end of a couple days' work, and now there is nothing left in the hole. No engine, no trans. I dropped the transmission out from under the car and just slid it out, so that made things really easy. New engine's right there, ready to get connected up once I get that XAT Racing adapter plate kit. The old engine went outside so that the new owner can pick it up when he's ready. Otherwise, All that's left to come out of here is just the exhaust, but I'll save that for another day because it's time to roll the car all the way back in the garage. Put her down and see, I guess for comedic effect, see how much higher she sits now that there's no engine and transmission in there. I think that's now a reduction of nearly 400 pounds up front and in the middle area there. So we'll see how it goes. All right, wow. I guess that's not as drastic of a difference as I was expecting, but I guess that's what you get when you have 8 kilogram per millimeter rate springs for the front coilovers. So it only raised up about an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. So with that in mind, I guess with an extra 60 pounds up front with the 1UZ in there, I won't have to adjust the suspension so much. So that's kind of a relief, although I'll still have to adjust the ride height just to put it back to where it was at least. Interestingly, my clutch line, if that's in focus, you can see it got a little melted over where it was sitting around the transmission, a little discolored. So I'm gonna have to make sure to get a new clutch line and also heat wrap it once I put the new one in there. Otherwise, I guess, yeah, next time I'll just have to get the exhaust out, so because that's going with the engine, and remove some more of the wiring, and replace those heater hoses right there, and also actually have to remove the brake proportioning valve because that has to get relocated over here. So the hard lines have to come out, and I think what I'll do is I'll get some steel braided lines and put a Wilwood proportioning valve, adjustable one, over here or around where that charcoal canister will be, or by the master cylinder over here, since then the charcoal canister will actually get relocated over here where the windshield washer reservoir would go. I'm thinking of doing a battery relocation and putting it in the back to kind of offset the 40 pounds or so that the battery weighs, so that we kind of take out 40 pounds in the back and put them, or in the front, and then put them in the back, so it's kind of an overall 80-pound weight difference. So that'll hopefully offset a couple of things. So I have some potential as far as what I could put in here. That's where the coil would go, but then the coil packs, or sorry, the igniters would go on this side of the engine based on where they were in the LS400. So there's a little bit of figuring out to do. I also do need to remove the front sway bar, as I need to put a AE86 sway bar in here because it has a larger check here in order to clear the LS400 oil pan. But it is slightly narrower, so I'll have to see what about I can do in order to make the AE86 sway bar fit. Some people have they've taken a flame to or a torch to the end of the sway bar and then bent them out a little bit. I'm going to see maybe if the end lengths are perhaps changeable, but that'll be a challenge for another time, because I think the first thing after this, after I get the exhaust and everything out, is to clean this engine bay out, because it may not look too bad on camera, but she sure is grimy, especially along the frame rails and in the battery, where the battery was. A little bit of fluid may have leaked out there, you can see. Otherwise, I think that's it for tonight. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. Made some really, really good progress getting the motor and trans out of the car. Can't believe how empty that hole is now, but that's just the window of opportunity I see in order to put something a lot more fun. Say like this V8 motor right here, this 1UZ. Next time I'll be taking off the valve covers and the intake manifold and pretty much getting it in preparation for a kind of OEM gasket and seal rebuild. I'll have to see if such a kit is available. Otherwise, I'll just have to look for an aftermarket brand that I trust. We'll see. I'll have to do a little bit of research. But otherwise, between now and the next update video, I'll pretty much have to be waiting on parts to come in, like the adapter kit with the flywheel and whatnot, as well as those gaskets. So if you like what you saw, consider subscribing, and get the next one out as soon as I can for you.